The galaxy expected noise. When a civilization collapses, stars usually witness the screams of the dying. War fleets break formation. Political worlds ignite in civil chaos. Communication networks flood with desperate last messages. Humanity did none of this. I record this as the archivist assigned to observe the final extinction of the species called humans. After the execution broadcast was transmitted across known space, humanity territory fell silent. Not merely quiet, the silence was heavy. It pressed against our observation hulls like the gravity wells of collapsed neutron worlds. Our younger officers reported discomfort when staring toward the human sectors. Some said the darkness between stars felt patient, waiting. Command analysis declared the phenomenon logical. Humans had lost. Their fleets were destroyed. Their planetary defense rings dismantled. Their economic nodes disconnected from survival supply chains. Therefore, humans had accepted extinction. 47 minutes passed. The Empire's celebration fleets continued broadcasting victory hymns across occupied human colonies. Ornamental warships released ceremonial light patterns around former human capital worlds. Alien ground forces expected resistance pockets. None were detected. No underground military signals. No encrypted planetary distress codes. Even human social networks appeared dormant. The Council historian reminded us that most species collapse loudly. Cities burn in final rebellion. Leaders beg for mercy. Families scatter into survival factions. Humanity did not follow this pattern. Instead, human space felt like an abandoned library where the readers had not finished the story. During the 32nd minute of observation, several junior analysts reported an unsettling sensation. They said the silence was not empty. It was listening. The Scientific Council debated whether such statements were emotional contamination from human cultural archives. Humans were known to create psychological warfare concepts using symbolism, yet the disturbance persisted. Humanity had demonstrated historical behavior that frightened strategic models. They resisted even when survival probability reached statistical impossibility. Some human soldiers continued fighting after their world government surrendered. This confused our war doctrine. Species were supposed to obey biological self-preservation. Humans sometimes chose something else. At the 47th minute, orbital sensors detected a change. It was not an attack. It was smaller, subtle. Old human satellite clusters, long considered useless debris, began emitting low-energy electromagnetic pulses. The signals were not military encryption, not fleet coordination commands. Instead, fragmented cultural archives emerged from forgotten storage nodes. Children laughing inside recordings, women singing during planetary harvest ceremonies, ancient human musical patterns that predated their interstellar expansion.
One junior observer asked why a defeated species would send memories instead of weapons. The tactical commander did not answer, because even he did not know. The signal spread slowly through abandoned human communication grids, like light traveling through dust. The archivist unit analyzing the transmission noticed something terrifying. The pattern was not random. It was structured, almost intentional. The children's voices repeated short phrases in different human languages. I translated them using the universal linguistic core. The message was simple. The statement contained no coordinates, no threat, no declaration of war. Yet the Empire's psychological monitoring systems recorded rising uncertainty among observation crews. Fear is unusual among our species, but humanity had a strange effect. Watching human archives often produced discomfort, not because humans were violent, but because humans behaved as if survival itself was sacred art. As the 47th minute approached completion, the Council debated whether to classify the phenomenon as residual cultural radiation. Military strategists insisted it was meaningless. Historical analysts disagreed. They noted that humans historically used culture as distributed memory storage. If their physical infrastructure was destroyed, their ideas could still propagate. Inside the command observation chamber, I noticed something troubling among younger officers. They were staring toward the human sectors without speaking, waiting, not for attack, but for explanation. The 47th minute ended, and then something happened that no tactical simulation predicted. The human satellite clusters increased transmission intensity by less than 1%. Not enough to trigger weapon classification, but enough to be noticed. The signal carried more voices, not soldiers, not politicians, children, old humans speaking softly, a fragment of piano music repeated in mathematical symmetry. Our quantum analysis systems confirmed the emission was not artificial weaponry, it was emotional resonance coding. The Empire's communication experts argued that defeated civilizations sometimes transmit cultural material before extinction as a ritual closure. The archivists disagreed because the signal was not fading, it was learning, expanding. Across the observation fleet, I detected the first signs of doubt, not rebellion, doubt. Doubt that humanity was truly gone. Doubt that extinction could silence a species that preserved existence inside memory. In the outer human sector, abandoned orbital agriculture rings continued rotating. No human operators were present, yet their motion adjusted slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if responding to something unseen, as if humanity was waiting, not fighting, waiting, for someone to finish celebrating their victory. And deep inside the galactic observation fleet, the first question began spreading among the younger observers.
If humanity sends stories instead of weapons, then what are humans preparing to become? The silence was not surrender. The silence was the beginning of a deeper conversation. And somewhere in the forgotten human satellites, a child's voice repeated once more. The Empire did not realize it yet, but the 47 minutes of silence were not the end of humanity. They were the pause before humanity spoke again, and the next transmission was already awakening from the darkness between stars. Victory is loud when a young empire believes itself immortal. The announcement of human extinction spread across every commercial, political, and scientific channel of the galactic civilization. The Empire declared that order had triumphed over chaos, efficiency had defeated emotional instability, biological evolution had selected superior species governance. Humanity was presented as a cautionary historical anomaly, a civilization that resisted logical submission. I observed the celebration fleets. Massive ceremonial warships orbited the former human core worlds like artificial moons of pride. Hyperspace transmission towers broadcast victory hymns composed by imperial composers. Young citizens of the Empire were taught that humans were dangerous not because they were strong, but because they were persistent in ways mathematics could not easily model. Our military academies now teach what strategists call the human paradox principle. The principle states, when humans experience increasing existential pressure, their behavioral unpredictability grows. Unlike most species that stabilize under domination, humans sometimes became more coordinated under suffering. The doctrine was controversial among younger officers. Older commanders accepted it silently. During the celebration cycle, historical institutes presented humanity as a failed evolutionary experiment that accidentally produced advanced social cohesion. Human individuals were statistically weaker than many predator species, yet human groups behaved like a single adaptive organism. Their warfare was inefficient, emotional, often tactically irrational by imperial calculation standards. But it worked. That fact still disturbed our strategic models. I watched imperial children studying human archives inside cultural education chambers. They observed humans singing during natural disasters. Humans recorded tragedies as if memory itself was survival technology. Children asked why humans preserve sadness. Teachers answered that humans believed remembering suffering prevented repetition. The children did not fully understand, but some stared longer at human footage than at imperial victory parades. Meanwhile, the Empire's War Council conducted verification scans. The question was simple: had humanity truly been destroyed? Long-range quantum sensors detect faint electromagnetic disturbances originating from regions once occupied by human industrial civilization.
Official scientific doctrine labeled the readings as geological resonance, planetary tectonic memory echoes, nothing more. Yet veteran reconnaissance scouts reported a different sensation. They spoke quietly inside briefing corridors. They said looking at human ruins felt uncomfortable, not because of danger, but because the ruins felt expectant, as if abandoned human cities were waiting for someone to complete a conversation that was interrupted. Human orbital rings around dead colonies continued slow mechanical rotation. Power systems were supposedly inactive, but telemetry readings showed minute trajectory corrections occurring randomly across several structures. No known intelligence was detected, no confirmed operator signals. Still, motion persisted. In the outer observation ring, I recorded unusual psychological responses among experienced fleet soldiers. They did not record fear. Fear is a primitive biological defense response. What they reported was something stranger: unease, a sensation that the Empire's celebration might be premature. The War Council debated whether extermination protocols were fully executed. Some generals argued that human survival pockets were impossible. Human planetary biospheres were sterilized. Infrastructure nodes were destroyed. Communication satellites were dismantled. Historical archives were seized.
Yet the council mathematician presented an uncomfortable probability curve. Total elimination of distributed cognitive species is difficult when culture itself functions as storage medium. The emperor dismissed the concern publicly. The empire began grand ceremonial broadcasts across conquered human colonies. Occupation administrators organized victory festivals. New citizens were taught that humanity was dangerous because humans believed survival was more valuable than obedience. During one observation cycle, I watched imperial children interacting with recovered human music recordings. They did not understand the language, but they responded emotionally. Some moved rhythmically to forgotten human melodies. Others remained silent, listening. It is difficult to explain to my species why such behavior felt disturbing. Our biology does not prioritize narrative inheritance, but humans did. They transmitted survival knowledge through stories, not only through machines. The celebration reached its peak when imperial fleets released ceremonial light storms above former human capital worlds. Starlight was refracted into symbolic victory patterns. Military commanders declared the war officially concluded. Yet in remote observation sectors, veteran scouts sent encrypted messages that were not part of official reports. The messages were identical. The Intelligence Bureau classified the statements as post-war stress hallucinations. But the reports increased. 3 more scout fleets reported similar sensations. Not visual detection, not thermal signatures. Expectation.
Like standing inside a room where someone has just finished speaking and you are waiting for them to continue. The empire continued celebrating. Young citizens danced beneath orbital parades. Historians archived humanity as a warning species, an evolutionary dead end that almost challenged galactic civilization. But somewhere inside abandoned human communication grids, a dormant subsystem activated faintly. It did not transmit war signals. It transmitted something older. Children's laughter mixed with broken music fragments, repeating, learning, growing slightly stronger every cycle, as if human civilization was not dead, but was simply waiting for the empire to finish celebrating. Because humans had a strange cultural belief: victory without meaning is temporary, and extinction without memory is incomplete. The celebration fleets did not notice the first subtle harmonic resonance forming between thousands of forgotten human devices scattered across dead worlds. The resonance was quiet, almost invisible, like breathing before speech. And deep inside the observation archives, I recorded one final unsettling thought. If humanity sends stories instead of weapons, then perhaps humanity is not finished. Perhaps humanity is waiting for the moment when the galaxy believes humans are gone. The empire believed war was the art of force. Humanity believed war was sometimes the art of not speaking. During the archival study of human civilization, I discovered a pattern that disturbed our military historians. Humans did not always respond to pressure with aggression. Sometimes they responded with absence, silence. Human strategic records contain doctrines describing psychological warfare through controlled informational voids. Silence inside human conflict history was not surrender, it was uncertainty. An enemy who cannot predict your next action cannot fully calculate victory. The 47-minute silence that followed humanity's defeat broadcast was reevaluated. What if it was not despair? What if it was preparation? Across human space, automated infrastructure continued functioning despite the absence of biological operators. Orbital agricultural rings rotated slowly around abandoned human colony worlds. Maintenance drones performed minimal energy preservation cycles. Old planetary defense satellites adjusted orientation angles by fractions of a degree. Not toward enemy fleets, not toward known threats, but toward mathematically optimal stability positions. The Empire's intelligence division attempted to decode residual human network traffic. They expected military commands. Instead, they detected fragmented human philosophical content, poetry, historical references, incomplete scientific notes, children's learning recordings. Among thousands of data fragments, one sentence repeated with unusual frequency. Humans did not always respond to pressure with aggression. Sometimes they responded with absence. Military analysts dismissed the phrase as cultural sentimentality, but younger intelligence officers disagreed.
They proposed that humans might be constructing a civilization-wide cognitive synchronization structure, a network where survival knowledge was distributed through emotional and narrative resonance. The theory was not accepted officially, but it was not disproved either. Meanwhile, deep lunar infrastructure, once used for human quantum communication research, began activating. The stations had been dormant for centuries. Energy signatures were extremely low, yet sensors detected structural excitation inside quantum memory arrays. The signals were not military encryption patterns. They resembled cultural transmission waves, almost like music waiting for an audience. The archivist monitoring human ruins reported a recurring anomaly. Random human devices would activate briefly, broadcast short audio fragments, then return to dormancy. The fragments were not coordinated by known command protocols. Instead, they formed a statistical pattern across millions of dead human machines, as if something was learning how humans spoke when they were alone. Our scientific council grew increasingly uneasy because the activation pattern resembled biological brainwave synchronization experiments. Human civilization might have been attempting distributed consciousness preservation. If correct, destroying human cities would not necessarily destroy humanity, because humans did not store their civilization only in structures. They stored it inside behavior, inside teaching, inside memory transfer between generations, inside children listening to stories they did not fully understand. The archivist became obsessed with a particular archived human message fragment recovered from an old terrestrial communication server. The recording was corrupted, but the reconstructed translation was consistent. I replayed the phrase many times. I do not fully understand why it produced discomfort among my species. Our civilization values visibility, proof, verification. Human survival philosophy appears to include existence even when observation is absent. This is deeply disturbing to our scientific ethics because it implies humans considered consciousness itself as a battlefield. Strategists inside the Empire proposed that humanity might be preparing for extinction resistance rather than military victory, not fighting to win, fighting to remain possible. Across abandoned human asteroid manufacturing zones, dormant robotics clusters began performing micro-adjustment movements. No production orders were detected, yet mechanical components maintained alignment tolerances far beyond passive decay models. It was as if the machines were waiting for something to arrive, or awaken. The War Council grew divided. Older commanders insisted humanity was finished. They argued that biological species cannot survive infrastructure destruction and population collapse. But younger tactical analysts studied human cultural archives more deeply. They noticed something terrifying.
Human civilization history showed repeated cycles of collapse followed by recovery, not through technological superiority, but through social reconstruction. Human children learned survival not by instinct, but by listening to adults who had survived previous disasters. This created what analysts called cultural inheritance momentum. If true, humanity could theoretically rebuild civilization even after catastrophic reduction. The emperor issued a public statement declaring that human extinction was verified. Celebration fleets continued ceremonial patrols around conquered human territories. Yet in remote observation sectors, veteran scouts reported increasing disturbance. They said human ruins felt like they were waiting for someone to finish speaking, like a paused conversation inside an ancient library where the reader has not yet turned the final page. Then, in the darkest regions of abandoned human space, quantum communication arrays activated one after another. Not loudly, not aggressively, but in synchronized resonance, like thousands of people taking a slow collective breath. The Empire did not understand what humanity was doing, but fear began spreading quietly among observation crews, because it was becoming clear that humans were not preparing to fight the Empire. Humans were preparing to survive extinction itself. And survival, for humanity, was not measured in bodies. It was measured in whether the story continued. I studied human survival archives longer than any other civilization record. The Empire wanted to understand humanity, not because humans were powerful, but because humans were impossible to predict. Across geological epochs of their homeworld, humans survived extinction-level events that should have ended biological civilization. Planetary climate instability, global warfare cycles, industrial system collapse, technological dependency failure. Humanity did not survive by dominance, they survived by adaptation. This is the first lesson our biological research division failed to fully grasp. The Empire attempted to classify humans as either predator or prey species. Both classifications failed. Human behavioral patterns contained contradictions. Individual humans could act territorially and aggressively, yet human groups often behaved cooperatively when facing shared danger. It was as if humanity was not a single biological strategy, but a hybrid system, part hunter, part herd, part something else entirely. The most disturbing data emerged when we analyzed human childhood development.
Most species inherit survival behavior genetically or through instinctive imprinting. Human children learn survival by observing adult behavior. This transforms human culture into what our scientists reluctantly called an externalized evolutionary cognition field. Human civilization was effectively a distributed organism, not located inside a single body, but inside communication networks between billions of minds.
During historical disaster events, archived footage showed consistent patterns. When resources became scarce, humans did not immediately turn on each other. Instead, many formed temporary cooperative clusters. They shared food, medical knowledge, emotional comfort, stories, even when statistical survival probability was low. The empire's analytical models struggled with this behavior. Our economic doctrine assumes rational resource optimization under threat. Humanity often sacrificed optimization for psychological stability. Hope was treated as a survival variable. This concept confused imperial biologists, because hope is not directly measurable in physical combat models. Military simulation engines were instructed to model human resistance after complete infrastructure destruction, population collapse, industrial shutdown, communication network failure. In every simulation, humanity re-emerged, not in the same form, but in functionally equivalent civilization structures. Human survivors would gather, teach children, reconstruct knowledge, rebuild technology, then repeat. The simulation results were classified as anomalous recursion survival behavior. Senior strategists grew increasingly uncomfortable studying human recovery patterns because humanity did not behave like a species defending territory. Territorial species fight to preserve land. Humanity sometimes abandoned land. Humanity behaved as if defending something more abstract, existence itself. Our Xenobiology Council proposed a disturbing hypothesis. Humanity might be a concept species, a civilization whose primary survival unit was meaning rather than physical structure. Destroying human machines did not guarantee human extinction, because human civilization was stored inside behavioral transmission chains, inside teaching, inside memory sharing, inside children listening to adults describing a world that no longer exists. The archivist reviewed disaster footage from multiple human historical periods. I observed something repeating. When human cities collapsed, survivors often formed small communities. They cooked together, protected children together, recorded events together. Even during famine cycles, even during war, human emotional communication appeared to function as survival infrastructure. The empire's philosophical scholars debated this phenomenon. Some argued humans were irrational. Others proposed humans evolved under conditions where group psychological stability directly influenced biological survival probability. The children of humanity were particularly disturbing subjects of study. Human offspring are not born with complete survival behavior. They learn by watching adults. This means human civilization depends on intergenerational narrative continuity. If stories stop, civilization risks fragmentation. The empire attempted to model post-extinction human behavior. If all human infrastructure was destroyed, what would happen? The answer frightened our strategic departments. Every simulation produced similar results. Humanity reappeared in unpredictable forms, sometimes technological, sometimes social, sometimes philosophical, not always centralized, but always functional. Our commanders began experiencing a strange feeling when observing human archives: unease, not fear of military retaliation, fear of persistence. Because humanity did not appear designed to defend territory, humanity appeared designed to defend continuation, not survival of individuals, survival of possibility. Young imperial officers studying human warfare history asked a disturbing question. Why did humans invest energy into hope when mathematics predicted failure? Senior strategists had no satisfactory answer. Hope was not a combat weapon. But in human civilization, hope behaved like an information carrier. Across human disaster archives, I noticed something else. Human survivors frequently created art during crises: music, drawings, poetry, documentation of suffering. This behavior appeared inefficient, yet it preserved cultural identity across generations. Our military doctrine began recognizing something terrifying. Humanity was not defending physical borders. Humanity was defending the continuity of being human. If the empire destroyed human machines, cities, and fleets, humanity might still regenerate through distributed cultural memory. The council historians summarized the realization in one sentence. The emperor did not publicly respond to this theory, but observation fleets were quietly repositioned. Because somewhere inside abandoned human sectors, quantum resonance signals continued growing slightly stronger.
like a civilization breathing in silence, waiting, not for war, but for the moment when the galaxy believes humanity is gone, and that is when humanity's hidden strength reveals itself. The Empire searched for humanity's ultimate weapon. They believe every advanced civilization eventually creates one, a singular force capable of ending wars, planet-destroying energy arrays, quantum annihilation engines, biomechanical predator fleets. The Intelligence Council spent centuries studying human archives trying to locate this weapon. They found nothing. No hidden battle armadas, no final doomsday machine, no forgotten Imperial-era human structure waiting to awaken. Instead, they discovered something far more frightening. Humanity did not design a single ultimate weapon. Humanity engineered persistence, civilization-scale survival continuity. Human scientific research archives revealed experiments once conducted on distributed knowledge systems. The objective was simple. If humanity faced extinction, knowledge should survive without centralized storage. Human researchers concluded that every human mind could function as a cultural memory node. This meant civilization was not stored inside cities, not inside machines, but inside people.
The archivist realized the terrifying purpose of human storytelling. Stories were not entertainment. Stories were survival algorithms disguised as emotion. When human infrastructure collapsed, survivors would speak to children about ancient worlds. Children who had never seen lost cities learned science, history, and survival behavior through narrative inheritance. This allowed civilization regeneration after catastrophic destruction. The Empire initiated a search for the human weapon. Military intelligence fleets scanned abandoned human territories. They expected secret superweapons buried beneath planetary crusts, hidden warships inside asteroid belts, ancient military archives waiting for activation. They found none. Instead, sensors detected billions of small personal recording devices scattered across human ruins. Old communication terminals, family message archives, personal diaries, scientific notes, unfinished musical compositions, childhood memory recordings. The content was not military, it was emotional. The Alien Council convened emergency philosophical assessment because they began understanding something horrifying. Human civilization might not depend on industrial capacity. Humanity could potentially resurrect itself using cultural inheritance. Destroying human infrastructure might not permanently eliminate humanity, because humanity was not primarily stored in metal, stone, or energy systems. Humanity was stored inside meaning transmission, inside education, inside emotional bonding, inside children hearing stories from adults who survived disaster. If one human remembers being human, then humanity's continuity may remain mathematically possible. Our xenobiology division called this phenomenon the persistence architecture, a civilization-level survival network where biological individuals functioned as temporary hardware for cultural consciousness. The military council grew increasingly afraid, because this meant humanity did not need fleets to survive. Human civilization could theoretically regenerate from scattered survivors as long as communication between generations continued. The Emperor ordered investigation into human child development archives. The results were disturbing. Human children are not born with complete survival knowledge. They acquire it by observing adults. This creates what our cognitive scientists termed recursive cultural reinforcement learning. If adults teach children survival behavior, children preserve civilization knowledge, then teach their children. This creates a chain reaction of memory preservation. The Empire attempted to model post-extinction human recovery, total destruction of human machines, population collapse, environmental sterilization. Even under extreme simulation conditions, humanity reappeared, not necessarily as a unified empire, but as functional communities capable of rebuilding civilization. Some simulations showed human survivors forming agricultural groups.
Others showed technological micro-cities emerging from ruins. The pattern was always the same. Humanity returned. Not immediately, but inevitably. The younger military officers began showing signs of anxiety. They asked whether humanity could be truly destroyed. The senior strategist responded slowly. Across abandoned human territories, personal recording devices began showing faint data activity. Not transmission, storage resonance, as if waiting for future readers, waiting for children who would someday listen. Inside one recovered human archive file, the Empire discovered an incomplete message. The audio recording was damaged, background noise was present, but translation algorithms reconstructed the core sentence. The archivist could not explain why that sentence caused silence inside the observation fleet. Humanity's unseen weapon was not designed to kill. It was designed to survive oblivion. Because if extinction cannot erase meaning, then extinction itself becomes temporary. And somewhere in the abandoned human data oceans, millions of forgotten devices continued waiting. Not for war, but for the day someone would listen again. The empire did not fall to human weapons. It began to fracture inside its own mind. Young soldiers studying human archives reported disturbing dreams. They described walking through empty human cities. No humans were visible, but they felt presence. Invisible observers standing behind broken windows, watching, waiting. Our psychological research division began investigating these reports. The conclusion was terrifying. Human civilization had created an evolutionary fear imprint inside observing species, not through warfare, but through narrative memory. Humans were not the strongest predators in the galaxy, but they were the most persistent storytellers. The archivist proposed a controversial theory during the Imperial Scientific Council. Human strength was not physical, not biological, not technological. Humanity's true survival mechanism was narrative architecture. Species that rely exclusively on physical dominance eventually fail when environments change. Predator civilizations can collapse when prey populations adapt. But humans encoded survival knowledge into multiple social layers: art, religion, education, family bonding, childhood storytelling, cultural rituals. This distributed survival system made humanity difficult to eliminate permanently. The Empire initiated deep surveillance probes into abandoned human asteroid colonies. The probes discovered something unexpected: seed libraries, not military storage facilities, civilization resurrection archives. Inside these colonies were preserved human genetic material, cultural documentation, educational databases, language evolution records. The Empire's emperor issued an emergency command: destroy all remaining human infrastructure, immediate sterilization protocols. But the order arrived too late.
Quantum monitoring arrays detected new transmission patterns emerging from human space. The signals were not weaponized. They were emotional waveform structures, highly organized, synchronized across millions of abandoned human devices. The waveform resembled breathing, slow, collective, alive. Our Xenoscience Council analyzed the pattern. It was not mechanical communication, it was biological resonance, like a civilization inhaling and exhaling simultaneously. The realization spread quietly through Imperial command networks. Humanity was not fighting the Empire. Humanity was waiting for the moment when the galaxy became convinced that humanity were finished. Because humanity's strategic philosophy contained a historical pattern. When enemies believe you are dead, you can rebuild without interference. Deep inside human communication ruins, dormant devices activated in synchronized low-energy cycles. No military targeting signals were detected. Instead, the transmissions carried structured emotional data, lullabies recorded centuries ago, fathers speaking to children, scientists explaining stars to students who had never seen night skies without war. The Empire's Intelligence Council concluded that humanity had created a civilization survival organism, not centralized, distributed, adaptive, able to regenerate from minimal remaining nodes. Our military doctrine began facing philosophical collapse. How do you defeat something that survives by remembering itself? The alien soldiers' nightmares increased. They reported hearing faint footsteps inside abandoned human archives. Not physical footsteps, but the feeling that something was moving through memory corridors. The young soldiers became reluctant to visit human ruins. They said the ruins felt patient, like a hunter that has already decided not to reveal itself until the prey is exhausted. The Emperor ordered final confirmation scans. If any human civilization activity remained, it must be destroyed. But the scanners detected something deeply unsettling. The human signal density was increasing, slowly, statistically, not as military mobilization, but as collective synchronization, almost like millions of isolated human machines were learning to move together without command, without central authority. The archivist recorded the most frightening hypothesis yet. Humanity was not preparing for war. Humanity was preparing for survival after extinction. Because humans believe extinction is only true when the story stops. Across the galaxy, Imperial children studying human archives began asking unexpected questions. What did humans feel when they were afraid? Why did humans sing during disasters? Why did human history contain so many stories of returning from collapse? The teachers did not have answers.
because the Empire was beginning to realize something horrifying. Humanity did not fear death. Humanity feared being forgotten.
And as long as something remembers humanity, humanity may never truly disappear. In the dark human sectors, the collective breathing waveforms strengthened slightly, as if a sleeping civilization was preparing to open its eyes. The signal came from Earth, the world humans once called home. Our long-range observatory confirmed that the planet was biologically silent. No active civilization, no confirmed population clusters. Atmosphere restoration systems operated automatically, but humanity was gone, or so the Empire believed. Then the transmission appeared. It was not encrypted. The archivist decoded it immediately because it was not military language. It was human language spoken through memory resonance. The signal carried voices from multiple historical ages of humanity: men, women, children, ancient recordings mixed with modern data fragments, and they spoke one sentence. The message spread across galactic communication infrastructure that the Empire believed was inactive. Human ruins across conquered territories began transmitting similar waveforms. Not weapons, not tactical coordination. The signal carried human experiences: laughter recorded during peaceful festivals, pain from historical wars, scientific discoveries explaining star formations, children describing dreams they did not fully understand. The Alien Communication Division discovered something terrifying. The signal was self-replicating. It propagated through emotional resonance fields rather than electromagnetic amplification. The Empire attempted electronic suppression. Quantum interference networks were activated. Signal damping protocols deployed. The transmission regenerated almost instantly, like biological healing after injury. Military fleet observers reported seeing faint luminous patterns forming near human ruins. The patterns resembled human handwriting written across stellar dust clouds. Some analysts believed it was coincidence. Others believed something was learning to express itself. The Emperor ordered final extermination protocols. All remaining human infrastructure must be destroyed. But before the order could be fully executed, the signal changed. It did not broadcast war. It did not broadcast survival statistics. Instead, humanity began transmitting unfinished existence. Architectural designs humans had never built. Cities existing only in imagination. Songs that were composed but never recorded. Scientific theories partially solved but not completed. Mathematical models predicting unknown planetary ecosystems. Children describing future worlds they had never visited. The galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. Humanity was asserting existence not through physical survival, but through potential. Human civilization began behaving like an open-ended system, a species declaring, "We are not only what we were, we are what we can become." The transmission expanded, across abandoned human orbital stations, across dead colony worlds. Across forgotten asteroid laboratories, the waveform carried fragments of human dreams. A boy imagining flying between stars without machines. An old woman describing gardens growing on desert planets. Scientists proposing energy systems that would not exhaust sunlight. Artists describing colors that did not yet exist. The Empire's Xenobiology Council realized the horror. Destroying human bodies did not erase humanity, because humanity had evolved into a distributed possibility structure. As long as unfinished human ideas existed, humanity could regenerate. Military suppression fleets fired high-energy disruption beams into human signal corridors. The beams passed through the transmission like light through water. The signal did not resist. It adapted, regrew, continued breathing, slowly, like a sleeping organism dreaming inside cosmic silence. Inside the Imperial Observation Chamber, I saw young soldiers watching the transmission. Some were frightened. Others were strangely emotional. Human voices were not shouting victory. They were speaking softly, about future children who had not been born, about planets humans had not yet explored, about discoveries humanity had not yet made. The Emperor's final command was issued: complete sterilization of all human remains. But as the fleet prepared weapon systems, the archivist detected one final transmission pattern emerging from Earth. The message was translated automatically. It was not spoken by one human. It was spoken by many, across centuries, across history. The signal intensity increased, not through power, but through coherence. Humanity was not declaring war. Humanity was declaring continuation.
The galaxy witnessed a civilization that did not measure survival by present existence, but by future possibility. And deep inside the Empire's youngest officers, a new and terrifying question began spreading. If humanity lives inside dreams not yet realized, then how do you kill a species that is still becoming? Earth remained silent, but the final human transmission continued, not as a warning, not as a threat, but as an answer waiting for someone to finish understanding it. I understood the truth too late. Humanity was never trying to win wars. This realization arrived inside the silent chambers of the Imperial Historical Archive, where I studied humanity for the final time. The Empire believed victory meant survival of the strongest species. Humanity believed survival meant something else. Humanity was trying to ensure that meaning itself does not die when entropy consumes matter. The Archivist Council discovered the final pattern hidden inside human history. Human children telling stories to other children. This was not cultural entertainment. It was civilization replication. Human survival was not stored inside military machines, not inside planetary governments, not inside industrial technology. Humanity stored its future inside imagination.
As long as one child remembered being human, human civilization could theoretically regenerate. Across countless historical periods, humans demonstrated the same behavior. During disasters, adults would speak to children about the world that existed before, about stars, about science, about lost homes, about hope that tomorrow could be different. This was humanity's secret weapon, narrative continuity. The Earth's final transmission reached completion. It translated automatically into every major language system used by the Empire. The message was simple, yet it caused psychological collapse inside several junior command sectors. The archivist realized something terrifying. Humanity was not fighting the Empire. Humanity was fighting extinction itself. And extinction was a mathematical process, not a military enemy. The Empire's Intelligence Council reviewed human cultural archives one final time. They discovered something overlooked. Human civilizations often recovered after catastrophic collapse periods, not because of superior technology, but because human communities rebuilt meaning before rebuilding infrastructure. Children learned stories before learning engineering, philosophy before physics, identity before survival optimization. This created what xenobiologists now call the recursive civilization regeneration model. If cultural memory survives, civilization can restart. Military victory becomes temporary because humans can reconstruct social systems even from minimal biological survivors. The alien archivist watched recordings of human children telling stories. Children speaking about heroes who were not necessarily strong, but kind. Heroes who protected others even when survival was uncertain. The archivist began experiencing emotional instability. Our species is not biologically predisposed to such responses, but human cultural exposure appears to induce existential reflection. Across the Empire, something unprecedented happened. Young alien citizens began secretly preserving human cultural artifacts, music, historical documents, children's drawings, fragments of human poetry. They hid these artifacts inside personal data archives, without imperial authorization, without military command. The Empire's War Council convened emergency session. The generals reported alarming behavioral changes among soldiers. Many refused to continue offensive campaigns against human ruins, not through rebellion, through fear. They spoke quietly in corridors. They said humanity was not fighting the Empire. Humanity was fighting extinction itself, and extinction had already lost, because extinction depends on erasing continuity. Human civilization was designed around preserving continuity. The Emperor attempted to issue final militarization order, but the command network responded slowly. Some fleets did not answer, not because communication systems failed, because operators were thinking about human children, about stories, about whether destroying humanity meant destroying something larger than species identity. The archivist delivered final theoretical conclusion to the Imperial Scientific Council. Humanity's true survival mechanism was not biological dominance. It was existential persistence. If even one human idea survives, humanity remains mathematically possible. Humanity is a civilization that stores its future inside imagination vectors. This is why human art,
religion, education, and storytelling are not secondary cultural functions. They are survival infrastructure. The council became silent because they realized the war was never about territory. It was about whether meaning can outlive physical decay. The Earth's final transmission continued broadcasting quietly, across abandoned human networks, across forgotten colonial stations, across dead planetary cities. The waveform resembled a sleeping child breathing slowly inside darkness. Not afraid, not fighting, waiting. The Empire's youngest officers began requesting reassignment away from human observation sectors. They said human runes felt alive in a way that was difficult to explain. Not biologically alive, but historically alive. Like a library where readers have not yet arrived. The final archive entry I record is this: humanity did not design civilization to dominate the galaxy. Humanity designed civilization to survive time itself. Because stars die, planets die, machines decay. But ideas can remain dormant until someone remembers them again. The Earth transmission ended with a final message. Not spoken by Empire language, but translated automatically by universal communication protocols. The Empire's War Council dissolved gradually. Soldiers left their stations. Not in rebellion. In quiet philosophical exhaustion. Fear spread inside the Empire. Not fear of human armies. Fear that humanity was not trying to defeat them. Humanity was trying to defeat extinction. And extinction had already lost. Because as long as imagination survives inside even one mind, humanity continues. Not as a civilization, but as an idea that refuses to end. And ideas are very difficult to kill. The galaxy fell silent once more. But this silence was different. It was not the silence after victory. It was the silence before understanding. End of script.